Today's episode is brought to you by Positively Productive Systems, whose mission is to be the antidote to your stress and to provide compassionate productivity resources and coaching that help you heal and achieve. Be sure to check out both free and paid resources at positivelyproductive.com/resources.
Sometimes business owners get a little anxious too about automation. I hear this especially from some of my business owners who offer higher ticket service offerings. They think, no, they're paying for me. They need to hear from me. They need to have me. They need to know they're feeling loved and nurtured by me. And this is the thing I always mention. If you're sending stuff late, if you're forgetting to send things, do they feel loved and nurtured? No, get them their stuff on time. And here's the thing too. Invest your time in the things that are going to make a bigger impact. So what, as your client, is going to make me feel more special? This eloquently crafted email to deliver the contract, or you being able to really show up prepared for the call with me because you had time to go back and look at my forms and review my website, or look back at your notes and show up really focused and prepared to me. That makes me feel loved and supported.
You're listening to the Positively Living podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Zawrotny, founder of Positively Productive Systems and a coach certified in time and stress management, helping clients make space for what matters most in their lives. Join me each episode and we'll talk about decluttering, stress management, habits, personalized productivity, gratitude, and so much more. I understand the overwhelm of life because I'm a wife, mom to kids and cats, and a former caregiver. I'm here to help you choose what's right for you so you can do less, live more, and breathe easier. Sound good? Let's get to it. Whether you've just started your business and feel overwhelmed by everything that needs to be done, or you're growing to a point where you need more support to keep up, your workflow matters. Today's episode is going to inspire you to review your workflow and find ways to simplify and streamline it. Why? Because you will save time and money and avoid unnecessary stress by doing so. Sounds worth it, right? Today, I welcome Melissa Morris to the Positively Living podcast to talk about how defining and streamlining your workflow can shave hours of work from your schedule and have an even bigger impact on your quality of life and business. Melissa's a business operations consultant who helps business owners streamline and automate their business using tools like D.I.S.C.O. She uses her D.I.S.C.O framework to free business owners from overwhelm so they can actually work on their business and not just in their business. Today, she helps us demystify what we mean by workflow and the often used but decidedly misunderstood concept of automation. Hint, it's not the big scary thing we think it is. She shares her D.I.S.C.O framework with us and some of the simplest yet most powerful automations we can leverage. She also shares what we need to do well before hiring a VA and the number one place we need to start to streamline and automate our workflow. You'll come away from this episode with simple, effective steps to set yourself up for success. We've talked about process, workflow, and automation on the podcast in different ways, so you'll want to check out episodes 18 on delegation, 45 on funnels, 70 on ClickUp, and 86 and 90 on systems. And remember, if you'd like to talk about any of the topics you hear on the podcast, I welcome you to DM me on Instagram at positively_Lisa or book a free connection call at positivelyproductive.com/call. Welcome, Melissa Morris, to the Positively Living podcast. I am so delighted that we are finally to the point of having this conversation because it's been a long time coming.
It has been too long a time coming, And I am so happy to be here. I never pass up an opportunity to have a conversation with you because I just always enjoy our chats.
Yeah. And we've connected. We've been connected for a long time. And I'm so excited that our businesses are at a point where we can have this kind of conversation that can benefit so many. But before we dig into this incredible topic of streamlining and simplifying your workflow, I would love for you to kick us off with telling us a bit about who you are and who you help and what makes you light up.
Yes. So I help business owners streamline and automate their businesses. Our goal is always to get you saving at least 5 hours per week. That is the goal. And I'm proud to say that we accomplish that goal too. So I'm an operations consultant, and this means we're taking a look at a lot of the tools that you're using. We dig into workflows. A lot of people get confused about what does a workflow mean, a process mean. People tend to kind of throw these words, systems and processes and workflows and tools, and they start to use them all interchangeably. And that's what I like to help business owners with, is figure all of that out. Do I need a process? Do I need a workflow? What tool do I need? And get that sorted out. And once we can create a lot of clarity around that and get things running more smoothly, it really opens the door for automation, delegation, and that's where that time saving really starts to come in.
And so does. And I know that that lights you up when you can really create that efficiency that changes the game and that creates that space that we're always looking for. I just had an amazing conversation with LaVista Jones about the concept that we can have our systems really support our self-care. It's about time we make space for us in all of this. And what you do is such a critical component of that. I also love that you talked about demystifying things. So let's start demystifying some stuff, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay. So first of all, there is this starting point that I think we need to talk about, the challenges that I think happen when we're in business, where we tend to, sometimes unintentionally, really waste time and money. And so what are you seeing? What are the challenges of the clients that are coming to you?
Yeah. So a couple of things start to happen is, as when we all are starting out in our business and through various points of our business, as we're refining and making pivots, as we all do, the focus is really on sales and marketing and getting clients and getting clients and getting clients, as it should be, right? That's where you should be spending your time and energy. But then you start getting clients, and then you start getting more clients, and then you start getting more clients. And then now you start hearing, the hustle, and it's how hard can I work and how many more can I take on and grow. And then you start a course and the next thing you know, you're like, what is happening? And so business owners get overwhelmed. And then we often get told, well, hire a VA. Which, okay, bringing in some help can be useful. But what breaks my heart is when people are paying a VA $25, $30, $35, $40 an hour to do things that can be automated. I'm like, that could happen for free. And that's nothing against VAs. VAs can bring a lot of value. Save your VA's hours, though, for other things, like lean on them for other things. And these tasks like invoicing and sending forms and sending proposals and following up about scheduling calls, all of that can be automated. And you can just leverage them to actually start bringing money into the business and helping you potentially with some client work.
You almost want to laugh about it like, oh, it's a wonderful problem to have, like that things have gotten busier and you're getting more clients. But then there is this outside message of, oh, hustle, hustle and go, go, go. And sometimes it's not even that it's a bad message because we're excited. We're loving what we're doing. But then it seems like the next obvious solution is this idea of hiring a VA. But to your point, there's a step in between so that you can really leverage what a VA is doing in ways that only a VA can. Because I've worked with some incredible virtual assistants, and there are certain things that they can be doing, and you're wasting time and money by trying to pay them to do these things that can be automated, right?
Yes, absolutely. And then the second part to that, this is what I also really wanted to mention. What I see so many times is because as the business owner, everything has been happening in your head.
Yeah.
There are no solid workflows or processes. You're making a bespoke proposal every time. You're writing the same email over and over again. Nothing is saved. Nothing is organized. There's no real plan in place. So you bring on a VA and the VA is skilled and wonderful and ready and says, what should I go do? And you go, I don't know. Or I hear this so many times. By the time I go and find the proposal or find the email and find the questionnaire and find and gather all of these pieces and then explain it to them, I could have just done it myself. So if we can just rewind a bit and say, let's first focus on the workflow and the process that we're trying to create, and then decide where we can automate and delegate. Look for those opportunities to streamline. That makes our life so much easier.
Yeah, what you were saying about like repeating steps, I think that's such an important clue is that when you notice yourself doing that, like reinventing the wheel, so to speak, it's not just that you're repeating steps, but that you are recreating something every single time. That's a blatant inefficiency right there. And even having a VA go ahead and do that instead of you, you're still repeating steps. You're still reinventing the wheel in a sense. So the inefficiency continues with or without the VA. So yeah, you're right. That seems like a really red flag, sounds kind of negative, but I mean, it's definitely a stop sign. It says, wait a minute, think about this, right?
Yeah, definitely. That's an indicator for sure. It's definitely an indicator that it's time to start taking a look at a workflow. And the conversation we're talking a little bit about here is one of the spaces that I always recommend businesses start to look at, especially service providers and even coaches, is your onboarding of a new client, where you move from that sales process, you land that sale. This is where things can start to fall apart, is bringing on that new client. Did they get the proposal and agreement in a timely fashion? Did you get their billing set up properly? Are you remembering to send them invoices? You would be surprised how often I hear this as a business owner is forgetting to send their invoices every month, or the proposal they were promised to send out a few days ago and it didn't get done because they're so busy. And what we want is we want our clients to come on and have a beautiful initial experience with us, right? A whole experience with us, obviously, but those first interactions and that bringing it on, they're really excited. They want to get started. They can't wait to work with you. And they're saying, well, where's that proposal I was supposed to have? Or the link you sent me doesn't work. And I can't find the hello sign document that you sent. And then it starts to feel muddy. And what's happened is the business owner is busy and overwhelmed. They're not clear on what this process looks like. So they forget that they're supposed to send the call link because they don't have it written down anywhere. They don't have a clear workflow in place. And so now a coaching client doesn't know how to schedule their first call. And so what happens too is our business owner, we're lying in bed at night thinking, did I send them the call link? Has so-and-so gotten their contract signed? Oh, I can't remember if I did invoicing this month. And then we're lying awake. And so not only are we actually taking up time where we're sitting at the laptop manually doing these tasks, we're taking up our bandwidth when we're sitting at the dinner table with our family and thinking, did I send this? Did I follow up with that? Did I check on this? When we're tucking our kids in at night and we're thinking and worrying about the things that we forgot to do, that's not why we want to do this. You talked about what I really enjoy most about my work. It's giving that back to business owners when they can just really be present with their family and their time off in the space they do have, because they know all that stuff is being taken care of. It's written down and documented somewhere. And down the road, automated and taken care of by somebody other than you or a software program that will do it for you.
Exactly. And so there's steps involved. And I think that's so important to know what an impact this can have on us in both directions. So the first is this challenge of being overwhelmed and where that overwhelm can show up and distracting you from being present in the life that you want. And to your point also, that's a stress response. So we are adding that on unnecessarily. Like it's one thing when there are things in your life you can't control and they come at you, you have your stress response, you deal with it. I mean, that is life. But these are things that we can avoid the stress response in by setting them up, getting the things out of your head. It's what I talk about all the time. One of the things that I point out with the whole understanding what it is that you need to be doing, where the repeat steps are, and what you can do with a VA is remembering that the VA is not supposed to come in to get you organized.
Right.
Right. The VA is intended to come in to help you up level and leverage what you're doing.
Absolute leverage. Yes. They should be leveraging your workflows and your tools, not creating them.
Let's go back quickly just to get in kind of that definition so we make sure we understand what we mean by the term workflow, and then we can get into automating that.
Yeah. So workflow is a bit what people refer to as their process, right? It's really the steps we're going to take to reach that desired outcome. So an example would be an onboarding workflow or an onboarding process. Mm-hmm. When you bring on a new client, there are just steps that all of them are going to have to take. They have to get their contract, like we've talked about, and pay their deposit. Hopefully you're sending them some sort of welcome email. If you're a service provider, you may need to get things from your client. You may need their logins so you can design their website. You may need their brand colors or their photos if you're going to do their social media. There's often things we need to get from them also. And so if we can think through all of these steps that take us from the moment where we're on a discovery call, clarity call, whatever you want to call that, with a business owner, and they say, yes, I want you to support me. Think about that as your starting point, and then take it all the way up to the moment where you are now in that nice rhythm with them, where you have fallen into, maybe it's a monthly meeting, or we have our recurring posts that we get approved for them, or recurring coaching calls. That entire space should be considered the onboarding workflow. And you should really be thinking through everything that needs to happen. So I take my clients through what I call my D.I.S.C.O framework.
Okay, love that.
Yes. D is define. And that's the first step, is you're going to define the process. What steps just actually have to happen? Then we're going to identify. We're going to identify the gaps, the drop-offs, redundancies. Where did I forget to ask for the login when we went through this? Why am I sending them this email twice or inputting this information twice in the back end, right? And then we're going to streamline. So if we're writing emails and this is where a lot of canned emails come in, canned proposals come in. Stop reinventing the wheel. Let's start streamlining these things and getting them ready to just grab and send. Then C, we're going to create phases and milestones. So we're going to create these internal checkpoints so that we know things are moving as they need to. So you can think about this in this example that we're talking about, where you need to get logins. Well, maybe as a social media manager, something you may do is an audit to start. And then you move on to the ongoing work. Well, before you can complete the audit, you need the logins. Well, you don't want to have your audit call until you've had the logins. So this way, there's a moment there where you need to say, I can't do this before this. That's a milestone. You flag that as this is a spot where we all need to check in and make sure we have what we need. And then we get to O. The part that we're all looking for is outsource and automate. Mm-hmm. Now that we have the workflow clearly defined, we've tightened it up, we've gotten things streamlined, we've gotten ourselves organized. We know the critical moments throughout that workflow that we need to keep our eyes on. Now we're ready to say, what tool will support me in automating this workflow? And find it, because you know what the tool actually needs to do now that you've mapped out the workflow. And also, too, it makes it easier to delegate because you know what you're looking for, you know what needs to be sent, and you have now organized and bundled and streamlined the things with canned emails and canned proposals and such, that if you want a VA or need a VA to help you until things can get automated, it's really easy for them to grab it.
I will make one point that when you say canned emails, also sometimes called templates, the idea is that you have a boilerplate. It's referred to in legalese, but the whole point is that it's written once and then resent multiple times. And it is such a brilliant point of this. And so, yeah, D.I.S.C.O. I love that. Then you do want to dance after this.
Yes.
And you're right. It does lead you right to the point of that clarity that you need to be able to outsource and to delegate properly. And I often call automation a type of delegation. You don't always have to delegate to a person. You can delegate to technology.
Yes, I love that. Absolutely. You can absolutely delegate to technology.
So let's talk about delegating to technology. Let's talk about automation, or maybe it isn't just technology, but how do you define automation? Let's demystify that a little bit.
Yeah, automation can scare people sometimes. And I think because it can mean a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And when you hear about automation, I think a lot of business owners can start to think of these big machines, right? And these complex, and someone comes into my active campaign and they get a tag and they get fired off through 7 emails. And if they click this button, and you can start to picture this whole machine working through. And yeah, that's automation, but that's Pat Flynn's automation. That does not need to be your automation, Automation can start with something as simple as getting your invoices going out every month without you having to touch them. And many, many payment providers will do this for you. Things as simple as Wave, up to QuickBook. Many CRMs will do it. D.I.S.C.O allows for recurring payments. Square allows for this. So this is a really simple and easy way to start introducing some automation into your life, is even as simple as that. Another thing that people underestimate the value of is their online scheduler. That is a layer of automation. And I think if we can speak to some of these that we're almost like, oh, that doesn't count, but it does. These small steps do count. And then when you can start to layer these together, the more powerful things will get for you, and the more powerful your automations will be, and the more comfortable you'll get using them. So even with a scheduler, you can set up your scheduler to send an email after an appointment. I do intensives with individuals. It's a 2-hour call. We get on there and have a conversation. Using a scheduler, the second that call is over, they can get a form that says, tell me how that experience was, and then capture a testimonial. I can automate capturing a testimonial and capturing feedback. I set it up once, we do this consulting call, and off it goes. And this isn't something I'm now having to track down. I'm not having to follow up. We all forget to get testimonials. So this is another one that I really encourage people to go ahead and start setting up for themselves. And it's a simple one to do.
I love that suggestion so much. And again, that goes back to this idea in your D.I.S.C.O part where the identifying the gaps and the drop-offs. This is a great example, right? Where you're like, you know what? Everything's going along peachy. And then I forget to ask for the testimonial.
Yes.
So how do I do that? Going back to this idea that your online scheduler, right, can do so much for you. It can do, I think, heavier lifting than you think.
Yeah.
It is a form of nurturing your clients, the people that you're collaborating with, because you don't have to lie there at night or be distracted at dinner or all the things that you described. You're like, wait, did they get what they need? Like I didn't have to wonder. I mean, you and I did have some rescheduling to do. That's a whole different thing.
Sorry.
But every time we rescheduled, that online scheduler still populated our calendars and it still had the link. You did not have to search for the link to hop on here to record with me today, right? And I also use my online scheduler when we're doing podcast interviews to remind you of the gear that you're going to need when we meet, things like that. There's so much that can be done. Now, it doesn't mean that I can't still choose to reach out personally, to maybe send a DM. But the point is that you make that an optional kind of bonus thing that you want to do. Extra check-in is something that you do because you want to and not because you have to.
Absolutely. And so I want to make 2 comments surrounding that. The first is, and I was going to comment on your reminder email that I was like, oh, I know this comes from her scheduler. And it gave a lot of useful information, but you need to know your workflow to put that together, which brings us all the way back to step 1 of the D.I.S.C.O framework. You've got to define it. And then having moved through that, you said, these are things I want to remind them of. These are things I need to let them know about. I don't want someone to be caught off guard. I want to make sure they have the right equipment. So because you took the time to map out your workflow and uncover and say, oh, here's a milestone 2. I can't get on the call and then remind them because they have no time to prepare. Right. So you put some thought into that. And now you were able to create that, automate it. And now you don't have to worry about, everybody knows what's going to happen. I showed up here. I knew what to expect. Right. So I think that is a really important thing to point out. And then the second thing I wanted to comment on too is also, I think, you mentioned you can do extra, right? But let's get the official stuff down. Like, let's get it down.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes business owners get a little anxious too about automation. I hear this, especially from some of my business owners who offer higher ticket service offerings. They think, no, they're paying for me. They need to hear from me. They need to have me. They need to know they're feeling loved and nurtured by me. And this is the thing I always mention. If you're sending stuff late, if you're forgetting to send things, do they feel loved and nurtured? No, get them their stuff on time. And here's the thing too, invest your time in the things that are going to make a bigger impact. So what as your client is going to make me feel more special? This eloquently crafted email to deliver the contract which I'm probably not even that stressed out about as the buyer, right? I'm like, whatever, I want to get on the phone with you. Mm-hmm. And you're spending all this time stressing out about that. Or you being able to really show up prepared for the call with me because you had time to go back and look at my forms and review my website or look back at your notes and show up really focused and prepared to me. That makes me feel loved and supported versus you potentially like whisking on because you had a call right before it and you have this packed schedule. And so just be mindful about where you're investing the time and invest it where it counts. And, this wonderfully delicately crafted email to say, here's a reminder of our call is probably not going to make the impact, right?
That is such a good point, because when it comes down to whatever it is we're trying to create, I go back to the word nurturing a lot, whether or not you agree with that term. It's a concept of saying, listen, you are my client, or in this case, you're my collaborator, and you're important to me. Okay. So it's how do you show the people that you're interacting with that they are important to you? It's in how you show up. Now, we still need to get stuff done. We still need to get things on the calendar. Need to get details over, but automating that stuff is it's not as like cold as I think I was guilty of that a while ago. This was quite a while ago where I was like, oh, wow, an automated scheduler that seems, like so cold. But what I think we're getting to, and you've made such a good point about, is that the high touch part of what we want to do needs to be in the places where it really matters.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And don't get me wrong. And, thinking of, I'm sure of the examples you had in your head, a year or 2 years ago. Yeah. When you're just dropped into some crazy automated funnel and someone's trying to pretend like it's not automated. And you jump in a Facebook Messenger and they're like, oh, hey, how are you? That's great. Did you know? And you're like, why are you pretending this isn't you?
Like, go away, bot. Yeah.
Or I get stuck in some email and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is automation at its worst. So I say automation is like alcohol. You need to do it responsibly. Moderation, responsibly, right?
Oh, yes, that's a good point. And so again, you find the sweet spot that works for you that is expected. Like, for example, if I'm doing a workshop, maybe it is a bit more automated because everyone just needs to know where to be, how to show up, how to pay, and then to be there to get the goods, right? Versus if you are going to be working with me one-on-one, you want to know what to expect. Did I have to complete something? Because I do give you homework before we meet. Sorry, but not sorry. Again, those milestones that you talked about, those things you're like, I need this in order to maximize our time together. And I will do my homework ahead of time when we're meeting one-on-one. So you're right, creating that space to take care of the things that matter most. And when you're coaching someone one-on-one, you want to show up prepared to give them the best possible experience. That's where you need to be spending your time, not writing an email.
Absolutely. And you know what? They get an automated welcome email, which is one, like you can use it to improve the nurturing. I do love that word. Use it to improve it. Send them a welcome email. Send them another email 2 or 3 days later that just is reaffirming how excited you are that their first call is coming up. I'd rather get an automated welcome email than no email at all. Right?
Right.
And here's the thing, even if we throw out an automated welcome email, I can still send another personal one because that automated welcome is going to give all the details. They're going to have everything they need. I can still the day before say, man, I'm just thinking about our call tomorrow and I can't wait to hop on it. We'll talk soon.
Yeah. And this is something I do in DMs, which is super, super simple. I mean, we're playing on Instagram together and I'm like, whatever it happens to be, I'm like, we're meeting tomorrow. I'm so excited. You got everything you need? And that takes a few seconds.
Nothing. Right. But if something happens, life happens, and that DM doesn't get sent, they still got a really beautiful welcome email. They still have everything they need. And you have the bandwidth to show up on that call feeling really present and prepared.
I love that. Yeah. So it's like you're covering your bases and then you can add on. But if the add-on doesn't happen, that's not something you lose sleep over. And how brilliant is that? That they're still feeling like they have what they need. You're still going to be there for them. Everybody wins.
Everybody wins. Yes.
I like that. I like when everybody wins. Okay, so we've been really simplifying this idea of automation. And I do like the idea of going back to, recurring invoices, some kind of, in a recurring payment structure, things like that, that make it nice and simple. It makes it simple for everyone, by the way. I have a lot of clients who love being on a subscription payment with me.
The first thing I ask my bookkeeper, my VA, my lawn guy, right? All of them, I'm like, can you just put me on auto pay?
Yeah. My clients love that, especially when we're in, accountability mode. So we are meeting regularly, and then they can choose to stop when they want to stop. And it's super, super simple. But that's another great example of everybody wins. It's not only that this automation is great for you and reduces your stress and increases how you show up in your business, but it is really, really wonderful for your clients too. The online scheduler is a great suggestion. What of these, or is there something else that you would suggest in terms of sitting down to figure out what that process is, that first workflow that might have the most impact? What could we step away doing today if we haven't done it yet?
Yeah. So I always recommend business owners start to look at their onboarding. And that's why I've used that as an example a lot, because the beauty of the client onboarding workflow process is, a couple of things. One, you want your client to have a great experience. Yeah. The second they connect with you. But the second part of that, the client onboarding workflow is like the workflow is the gift that just keeps on giving. Because when you have equipped your client right out of the gate to know what your working hours are, what they can expect, how they can schedule a call, what they might do to reschedule, what you're going to need from them, and when you need it by. When you do this upfront, and you can do it in a couple of emails, that's automated. So i.e., you don't even have to do the work. But when this gets done, your client shows up so much more equipped to have a good experience with you, a less stressful one. They're not asking you as many questions. Mm-hmm. They're not emailing you as much. You have what you need to get your work done, so you're not chasing them down for it. If you've done your welcome email right, you've set your boundaries on when your work hours are and when you're going to get back to them. So you're not fielding emails at 8:00 at night or giving text messages. So this is a workflow that if you get in place, will really start to compound in terms of time savings. So not only are you going to save time in that moment of getting them on board and getting just the logistics of working together out of the way, when done really well, it will continue to save you time because you have set some really good expectations with your client.
Oh, that is so good, Melissa. Yes. Okay. I took notes while you were saying this, and I wrote down the phrases: manage expectations, provide resources, celebrate, and upsell.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Because you're answering the questions, how can we work together? Because they might also be thinking, well, what else can we be doing? We're going to do this thing. And then Absolutely. What else is there? They might be thinking that, and they had that there. You're celebrating, you're sharing the excitement, you're managing the expectations. I love the boundaries, the business hours, getting everyone set. And it can get better and better the more you have that set. And there's something really special, I think, when you're setting boundaries about having what I refer to as a third-party reference. It's like, here's the list of policies, or here's the list of things, or refer to this and you'll see my business hours. It's not me saying I'm available or not available, or here's when you can call me. It's like this third party reference. And there's something, I think, psychological about that it's like, oh, well, that's the rules we're playing by. That's how we're interacting. Got it. And it creates a brilliant working relationship because when you already have that mutual respect and trust of wanting to work together in the first place, you want to continue that by respecting how this whole process is meant to work, right? You want to respect each other.
Absolutely. And another great way when set up well, and I love where you were talking about the third party component, right, is use it also for avoiding scope creep. So scope creep is where you're doing work that is outside of the proposal and the agreement. And here's also what happens when we allow things to get really muddy during onboarding is we have not laid out not only our clear boundaries, but what are the deliverables of this project? What is included and what is not included? And so then again, what happens, this is why that client onboarding will just keep saving you time as you continue to go, is because you're not going to get asked to do things that are outside the scope of the project, that are outside of the agreed deliverables, because you've made it really clear upfront. And you have also made clear, like you were starting to talk about some of those add-ons, right? Like this is an add-on. And so you've already laid the groundwork that this is not what I'm going to do. Or if it's an option that I'm going to do it, expect an additional fee versus your client has just assumed that this is part of the package. They're asking for it and you're sitting there going, well, I guess I didn't really say this wasn't included, which is, I've heard this all the time. I ended up doing this and I never really said it wasn't included. So then I felt like I had to do it. And then there was another thing that, and the next thing you know, you have been working all of this extra time for free. So first thing you should start to look at is your client onboarding workflow and getting that really clear.
I love that. So using the D.I.S.C.O approach, right?
Use the D.I.S.C.O framework.
And all this takes, right, is take a piece of paper, okay, or, pop open a Google Doc, whatever works for you, right? And just write down the first step of connecting and then what you want to have happen. And you've mentioned so many different things about what are your policies about this? What's going to be included? Did you provide a proposal? And if that's the case, then, the proposal will indicate what's included. And if you don't do a proposal, then like for me, I don't do a proposal because I have a standard package, but you find out what is included in that in terms of, the time frame and how you can connect with me and how we can follow up and that sort of thing. So it's about being clear on what those steps are and giving yourself a chance to say, okay, and if I were a client, then I would also want to hear about this as well. And so those are the gaps that you're talking about, right?
Yep. And you'll find them because you're going to sit down to start work.
You'll find them.
I didn't get X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And so that moment when you sit down and go, oh, I forgot to ask for their login again. I forgot to get their photos again. Write that down. Like that is something to pause and reflect on.
Well, there you go. And if you start with that checklist, and that's what I was about to say, is it's basically a checklist, right? You start with that checklist where you've written down these things, then you go to a client and you catch something that you've missed. You go back to that checklist and you modify it.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought up the word checklist. There's one on my website.
Fantastic.
An onboarding checklist. Yes. Because you can go through that and think of these little things. And something I tell people to do too, is it can feel overwhelming to think, oh, I've got to do this, especially maybe somebody who's already finding themselves on the precipice of overwhelm or leaning towards burnout. Now it's, oh, I've got to map all this out and I've got to create all these standard proposals and I've got to write all these email templates and this. Start slow. Start with the next time you bring a client on. This is what I say. Just take a breath and say, you know what? I'm just going to make a commitment to myself right now that the next time I bring on a client, they're going to be like my beta workflow. And I'm going to think through, okay, this is a proposal I'm going to write for them. How can I word this proposal in such a way that I can send it to the 5 people that come on board after them? And when I write the email to deliver this proposal or contract, how can I write this email in a way that I can use it for the next 5 that I send out? So sit down with that intention in your mind that I'm going to write the email that can go out to this person and every client that goes out after it. And there will always be exceptions, but I always ask my clients, I say, if we can get even 50% of your clients moving through an automated workflow, like even 50%, what would that do for your life? And every one of them's like, that would be life-changing. Okay, let's start there then. Let's start there.
I love that. So sitting down with the intention, using your next client, or maybe even a client that you're working with right now as that beta workflow, I think that's a great suggestion. And I will add to that, you're making a checklist. So you're just listing down the things that you're doing, even doing right now, or you're about to do. And then as soon as you've written the email or done whatever it is that you're doing, capture that, keep that in that same folder along with your checklist, because that's going to become the template or the canned email or whatever you want to call it. That's where you start.
you just start. You just start the next time you sit down to go and do this work. That's where you start. And then the key component is you sit down with that intention that you're going to create this in a way that can be used again. And then you need to name it properly and save it somewhere where you can find it.
Yes, absolutely.
Not on your desktop, not titled contract in your Google, like set up a proper name. I recommend you put the name of your service offering and then contract, and then service offering, contract delivery email, service offering, right? Like, put that service offering, put what it is, and then you can organize it. Like, for myself, I offer intensive. So it will say intensive contract, intensive proposal, intensive email templates. And when you click in that folder, it's going to say intensive contract delivery email, intensive welcome email, right? And then for the done for you tool setup, same thing. Like, I have that. So when you get these really organized, so one, this is going to help you when you are ready to hop into a CRM like D.I.S.C.O and get these workflows automated. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to load all that stuff in, right? Like, you're going to have all that stuff ready before you can automate it. It's organized, it's named well, you can find it. Until you get to the point where you're ready to do that, you can find it. You can find what you're trying. If they're all titled contract, new contract, updated contract, or a VA, how can a VA decipher? Exactly. Like, what email is this for? Is this the new one? Is this the old one? Name them well and start getting organized. And if you can even just start there, you're going to start getting some time savings by getting yourself organized and setting down with intention to come at it from a reusable standpoint, right?
I love that. Yes. Get organized. Think about reusing it so that you're not, reinventing the wheel every single time, and start very simply. I love it. I think that's an awesome place for us to wrap up here. And then I say, go out and give it a try. And speaking of that checklist that you have, now would be a great time to share where we can find you online and get your support in all this.
Yes. So you can go to my website. It's melissavmorris.com. So Melissa V is in victory, Morris.com. So if you hop over there, I do have a checklist and some other fun things that you can check out. I also have started hanging out on LinkedIn. So I would love for you to come and find me there. Send me a DM. I'm Melissa V. Morris on LinkedIn. So you can find me there. And then I'm also on Instagram. Same, Melissa V. Morris.
Fantastic. I will make sure to have those links in the show notes. Are you ready to have a little fun, rapid wrap up now?
I'm ready.
All right. So if you would fill in the blanks for me, please. A song that lifts my spirits, makes me dance is?
High Hopes. Because I've got high hopes for a living.
I love it.
You didn't know I was going to sing a little, did you?
No, but that is just a bonus round on my part. Okay. How about a quote or a mantra that inspires me that I love to share?
I think my favorite one is, I have everything I want. And I say that because it's easy especially as a business owner, to think you've got to do more or reach a revenue goal, or, I need to do this, or I need to do that, or I need to, and you know what? I don't. At the end of the day, I have my family, I have a home, I have a roof over my head, I have healthy food. I really have everything I want. I really do. And so I try and pause and remind myself of that sometimes when I'm like, I need to go do this, or no, I have everything I want. I'm good.
I love that. That feeds into what I am so strongly advocating, which is that feeling of enoughness, that we have enough, that we are enough. So that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Okay. And how about a resource, a book or an app or something besides D.I.S.C.O, because you did mention that. I know that's a good one. Besides that just makes my life better. I love using.
I actually really love time tracking. So I use Toggle a lot, and I really recommend everybody I work with to do that because it is enlightening.
Yeah,
it is really enlightening. And I use it and then go back and look at it though. Look at that report and pull and see. You will see where you are spending way too much time scrolling social, or way too much time in your inbox, or you will even start to recognize the client. You'll start to say, the client who pays me the least, I'm spending the most time on. How did that work out? Is that
always the way? Yes.
That's always what happens. Or, or we think to ourselves, when I do those projects, I'll do it in 5 or 6 hours. And then we look back at their time tracking. I'm like, that took you 15 hours to do. And so it's just and it's not a tool to beat yourself up about. It's not a tool to get yourself stressed out about. Use that data though, to make your life better and say, oh, I spent 15 hours on that. Well, no wonder I'm burnt out. I thought I was doing it in 5 and I was booking 8 of these at a time.
Absolutely. That has been on one of my favorites lists. It is in my free resources, a link to Toggle. You just go to TOGGL, it's probably .com, but I've recommended that forever. And that data is truly important for you to figure out so many things about the whole, do I have time and where am I going to fit stuff in? That's a great suggestion. Okay. And last, but definitely not least, what or whom are you grateful for today, Melissa?
Oh, I'm sure like most, my family, and then especially with things that have been going on in the world in the last couple of years, that we're here, we're healthy, we're all together. I have everything I need, I have everything I need. So
that's gratitude, a beautiful gratitude. And I am grateful that we're here, that we were finally able to have this conversation because sickness did play a part. And so that we're here and we're healthy. And I'm so grateful for you to have known you, to be able to have this conversation today, and that you are shining your light in this world, Melissa, and sharing it with us.
Oh, thank you so much. I was so honored to be here.
Thank you for joining me today. Your time is precious and limited, and I'm honored you chose to spend it with me. If you have feedback, questions, or want to schedule a chat, head to positivelyproductive.com/connect. And if you are looking for any of the resources referenced on the podcast, from books to products to training and more, go to positivelyproductive.com/resources.